Hi, Gloria Lybecker here with Healing You. Do you have dreams for your children? What are the nature of those dreams? What character would you really love to see them be able to acquire or to grow and develop? Children learn what's important to us, and they learn what we value by living with us and observing the outward expressions of our character. Then they remember and they imitate, and they recreate these ways of being in the world. When I intentionally take the time to learn ways of being that are rooted in compassion and self-understanding, I'm also taking an important step in an unfolding process that supports my children to know themselves. I recently had a memory about this. My twin grandsons spent the night last night, and it took me back probably about 10 years ago when they were only 2. And they had visited us, and Rylan and I had so much fun playing with them and putting together puzzles and reading and telling stories. We were sharing, let's pretend, and play in the playroom. And they loved watching Rylan's frog, Mr. Ed. When it got to be about lunchtime, I brought out color books and crayons, and I asked them if they would like to color while I worked in the kitchen. And they all said yes, and they happily scampered to the table and began coloring. And as I started pulling out food to prepare, both Andrew and Carter's eyes popped wide open. They slid off those chairs, and they began scooting them across the floor towards me. And Andrew asked, "Me help, Grammy?" To which Carter replied, frowning toward his brother, "No, me help, Grammy." So I smiled and reached to help them both come up and move their chairs safely to the counter. And I said, "We can all help each other." And as they climbed up onto the chairs, I saw my vitamins and my supplements. They might be within reach, and I pushed them back into the corner out of the way. What followed was just a comedy in cooking. We had a grand time taking turns pushing and pulling on the rolling pin and carrying on a conversation. And I was hard pressed to follow the conversation many times. I was just marvel at the way that they could communicate with each other and with me, sharing attention and using reciprocity and resonating with one another's emotional expressions. But when they would repeat something for the 3rd or 4th time, the same thing to Grammy, I found it extremely helpful to ask my 4-year-old granddaughter for a translation. About 15 or 20 minutes moved into it. I noticed that cooking was taking much longer with all the help I was getting. And my energy began to run low, and I noticed I was taking deep breaths more and more often. So I paused and I glanced around the room, and my eyes landed on that television set. And I asked, how about a short Winnie the Pooh movie while Grammy finishes up in the kitchen? So Andrew and Hannah squealed with delight, and they were quick to follow Uncle Rylan into the next room and to sit on the couch. I looked over to see if Carter was coming, and I saw him stretching over the counter to pick up one of my supplement bottles. Automatically, boy, I just snatched it out of his hand, and I quickly picked him up and set him on the floor. And I said, "No, thank you, Carter. Grammy puts these there for safety. You want to go sit with Uncle and watch Winnie the Pooh?" "No," Carter exclaimed, and I looked at him closer, and I could see that his eyes were suddenly brimming with tears, and his jaw was set, and his lower lip was pouting. I squatted down next to him, and I reached out to touch his shoulder, and I asked, "Are you feeling sad?" And pulling back to cross his arms in front of himself, his little face just reddened up as the tears splashed over. And with some effort, he answered loudly, "No, mad, me mad." I felt my own face reflecting the surprise that I felt. I said, "Oh, you feel mad? Is that it?" He said, "Yes," and his tears got bigger. I said, "Grammy, sorry, Carter. Is there more you'd like me to hear?" And his eyes widened just slightly as he nodded, and he turned and he pointed to those supplements. He said, "I put back, no take away, Grammy." So I reflected. I said, "Oh, you were putting the bottle away and didn't like Grammy taking it from you?" You like to do it all by yourself? Is that it? And that reflected his need for autonomy and choice. And he said, yes, I put it back. He nodded, and his complexion cleared as his tears slowly disappeared. I said, yes, you like to put it back. Thank you, Carter, for helping Grammy understand now, because I was worried about safety when you reached out to touch my bottles. I looked into his eyes and I said, those bottles are just for Grammy, and I like to keep you safe. I was naming the need that had bubbled up for me in the moment. I said, how do I like to keep you? He said, safe? Grammy's bottles? He pointed to them again. I said, yes, I like to keep you safe. And Grammy keeps her bottles up for safety. And I said, I will ask you next time what you're doing, rather than just taking something away. Will you forgive me? And can you give Grammy a hug now? He said, yes, with a nod and a smile. And coming closer, he paused to look me deep in the eyes. And then he wrapped his arms around my neck, giving me a big, long hug. Brings tears up just remembering that moment. I said, oh, I see you, Carter, and I love you so much. And he says, I love you so much. I said, are you ready to sit with Uncle now? He said, yes. And happily, he marched off into the other room. Wow, the dialogue between us couldn't have taken more than 5 minutes. Yet what a powerful impact it had on our relationship. By taking the time to have a reflective conversation with my child, with my grandchild, we help to develop the mind-sight capacity that they have, which enables them to see the mind of another person. And understanding the mind of others gives children a way to understand behavior and the world that they live in. When we can see the mind of another person, we can understand what that person's feeling and needing. We can respond with empathy. This, in turn, helps our children to understand the intentions of others and to make flexible decisions in social situations. And it deepens their understanding of their own mind as well. If you'd like to have more conversations and you'd like some support for your family with your loved ones, reach out to me. And thanks for being on the journey with me today, healing you.